Eric, are you ready for some Geeks Not Nerds?
I am.
Here we go. We're going to do
We're going to go punch the nerds? We're going to stomp them.
We're
stomp the nerds.
That's not what we do. Look, I don't like those who would win in a fight kinds of questions.
It's us. We would win.
Look, people who know math better than me might be able to beat me in a fight because they get the trajectories and they...
Oh, like the Sherlock Holmes thing.
You know, yeah, like playing pool, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They know the trigonometry, the geometry of the whole thing. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about math because that's when I look like an idiot. Tonight, we're going to talk about something that Eric doesn't even know about. Eric doesn't even know what we're talking about on Geeks Not Nerds tonight. Eric, I want to go back and read... This is kind of a conversation you and I had the other day that I thought would make for a cool GNN topic that we probably won't be nearly as articulate as we were off camera, but we're going to talk about it anyway. This is something we have talked about some, but we have a lot of new information, and it's getting more and more fascinating to try to guess what the future is going to look like. So I want to talk about, once again, the battle strategy for the DCEU or the lack thereof.
Because everything has changed, possibly, unless it doesn't.
Yeah, and that's the big question. So here are a couple things I wanted to kind of tack onto this and talk about. I'll just read what I wrote here. So is it a good idea, first of all, for Warner's and DC to run off and do a bunch of non-DCEU things that are kind of standalone, or maybe will connect to each other if they do sequels to things, but then also have this DCEU that is really loose and they're not really building toward anything. It doesn't really matter they're connected, but some of them are connected. Is it a good idea? Will they stick to it? How important is Justice League going to be? And how important is Aquaman? Those are kind of my big questions.
Okay.
I'm going to put 15 minutes on the clock.
All right. So with all of it.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers is as fickle and flip-floppy as they can possibly be.
At least they have been.
The question of will this stick is will it sell? Because if it doesn't sell, immediately, they will immediately change course again. Because that's the pattern that they've shown. Justice League already feels like a relic. It already feels like it's not important. The problem is, if it does really well, I could see them uncourse correcting and leaning back into that.
Me too. That's my worry about it. We're going to be like, oh no, that's the ticket. See, is continuity and a bunch of movies that are all interconnected and doing exactly what Marvel's doing. I was really excited about that announcement.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? Forget this whole DCEU thing. We'll keep it. They'll be sort of connected, but that's not the focus. The focus is on each individual film telling the best story we can tell.
Which is
jumping off from Wonder Woman, but they probably mostly did that because that stuff's not important for Wonder Woman, and people loved that movie. It was one of the biggest movies of the summer.
Yep. Well, and it's the one major complaint that Marvel movies keep getting hit with. Is this just kind of feels like an appetizer for something else you're trying to sell me. And then when I get to that something else, sometimes that also feels like an appetizer for something else you're trying to sell me. If you're focusing on just making singular films with one story, and if more comes of it, great. I do think a problem could arise if they're doing these Elseworld things, which I think is hilarious that they're like, we have this other line of movies that aren't going to be continuous, but we don't have a name for it. I'm like, how do you not have a name for it?
Especially if you have a standard continuity.
And everyone is referring to it as Elseworlds. Everyone's referring to it as Elseworlds. But so they're going to have these Elseworlds films. I do think it could get confusing for a modern public if you have the Elseworlds films and you have the semi-ongoing continuity, and the Elseworlds films got sequels.
Yeah.
I think that could be confusing.
And we don't know if that will happen. But the reason I said it like that, I don't want anybody to jump the gun and be like, well, Cap, what are you talking about? They haven't said they'll do sequels. Yeah, but if they have one that's huge, they might think about making it its own franchise. We make mostly franchise movies. That's what's exciting about this idea is they're talking about just making movies. That would be really cool, but will they do what Fox did with Logan, where it's like it was huge? They're not going to find some way to make another one. Mm-hmm. That's all you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. I think for the mainstream public, I want to believe this isn't a world where people are trying to figure out how Begins connects to 89.
But I think people are getting savvier.
Or they don't understand that the current Star Wars films have negated the Star Wars novels.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
In that world, I want to believe that people can understand that the Elseworlds films are their own thing and the ongoing films are their own thing. But I do think if you start
marketing
doing
that is hard.
sequels,
I
would
think
be difficult.
that name helps, though.
Elseworlds?
Yeah, like if you like I don't know, if you make the branding really clear like that, you could still get away with sequels, because it's like the only thing that might be confusing is people thinking that because it's called Elseworlds, those all happen in the same continuity. That could maybe confuse people. But I think if they all had that banner, and then the DCEU films all have the DC banner, maybe that would be enough.
I do think it might
get too confused.
It might be smart to have some kind of.
But my real question here is just: will they actually stick to this? Like, are they really gonna do what they're saying they're gonna do? I mean, they're clearly gonna have to make at least one or two, because they're making so much headway already with some of these projects that they've announced. I mean, it sounds like they're already getting rolling on some pre-production with some things.
Yeah, Martin Scorsese's involved with that Joker film. He's not directing it, but Scorsese was always one of my go-to as an example of the kind of filmmaker that will never be involved with a comic book movie.
Right.
And now he is. He's not directing it, but he is involved. And that film sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, Joker Origins, not, but like a 70s crime film in the Batman universe, that sounds cool.
I just think that if they stick to their guns and they do what, like, Justice League's a mulligan. If it's popular, whether it's popular or not, you can't look at that to gauge what your strategy should be moving forward to be successful, because whatever you do, first of all, you've already got a really convoluted mess with what you've got leading up to Justice League in the first place. So it's kind of time to either, I think already, even if Justice League is good, it's kind of time to cut ties with that, because Man of Steel and BVS left such a poor taste in a lot of people's mouths, to either cut ties with it or do what they're talking about doing, which is, well, it kind of counts, but it just doesn't matter that it counts. It's not important. If you make it all about the continuity again, what do you have that's new? What do you have that's different in competing with Marvel? This is the way you compete with them. It's what I said all along. They should have started with this. You just make good movies, and if you want to tie them together in cool, loose ways, that's fine. And then once it really makes a lot of sense to do team-up movies, then you can do that too, and you can let that universe build organically, but don't force it. And I really think that what they should really steer into is what is great about DC versus what's great about Marvel. I've said this a million times, Marvel has always been about a close-knit continuity where everything feels like it fits in the same universe. And DC has always been about a bunch of disparate properties that they bought out that all came together in the first place. You steer into that, you make a million different kinds of movies that one never looks like another.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree completely. It makes perfect sense that you would do this like this. It also lets you, because also a difference between Marvel and DC is a lot of DC's biggest and most popular stories are not in continuity. Marvel doesn't have that.
Exactly.
All of Marvel's big stories,
with rare exception.
Yeah. But if you wanted to,
I can name a few.
Yeah.
Marvel Zombies is that way. Marvel's is that way.
Yeah.
Marvel's is one of the big ones, right?
But most of the, I mean, like Dark Phoenix Saga, the night when Stacy died, like all
Born Again.
Yeah, Born Again, the Wolverine miniseries that everyone loves, the Miller one.
Yeah.
Like all of the seminal everything for all the characters are in continuity.
Even Origin, which for the longest time I thought wasn't in continuity, it's in continuity.
Yeah. A lot of really big stories for a lot of these characters aren't in continuity. All-Star Superman, Red Sun,
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns, like a lot of these, and not even necessarily Elseworlds, but they're all kind of in their own continuities. You can do those now. It sounds like they might do those.
Yeah.
Red Sun, in particular, I've heard rumors might be getting turned into a film.
And I keep saying this. I want to see a really good Superman movie that understands Superman before we get Red Sun. But if that's not connected in any way whatsoever to the DCEU, that's not as big of a deal.
No.
Because it's not because we have had a good Superman film. Donner made it. You know what I mean? So
We
it's
had
not
two
like
of
we
them.
never. It's not like we never got that.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring up that Marvel doesn't have a lot of stories that aren't in continuity that are really popular, because Warner should be looking at the fans that keep, and I count myself among them, that keep wanting to see Marvel turn into a multiverse. I think that's really interesting. That I don't think I was the only person saying this, that when Doctor Strange broke out into multiple dimensions, immediately people started saying, oh, they're going to make what-if movies. The fact that people want that for Marvel should tell DC something. And I wonder if it didn't. You know what I mean? Because this isn't me harping on DC. I love what they announced a few weeks ago. I just hope they stick to their guns. I'm terrified that they won't. I'm terrified that Justice League is going to be $1 billion movie, and they're going to go, oh, we were right all along back with BVS. We should just stick with that. They might even also think, well, because Snyder's not going to keep going, maybe he's the problem. And I mean, I do think he was a big part of the problem, but like maybe Snyder's the whole problem, and we need to go back to what we were going to do in the first place and scrap a lot of those Elseworlds projects. And I don't care if these things are in continuity or not. What I want is focus on telling a really good story for each movie you make. That's what I want. Marvel has managed to more or less, in my opinion, kind of do that and build this continuity stuff. You notice one of Marvel's weakest things actually has been tying their movies together. I mean, they've done obviously with Winter Soldier and Civil War, like they've done a lot of great stuff with that. But early on, when they would set things up and they have to kind of retcon them at the end of things that they did at the end of credits,
sense.
Yeah, like they haven't always been great at this either. But I love those movies because it wasn't about that in the first place. That's not all it was about.
Yeah, they. I mean, it's so hard to, and we've had this conversation so many times, like, I want to be the fly on the wall in the Warner Bros. Boardroom, because they seem so reactionary, they seem like they're running around, and Warner Bros.
I want to think they just finally got smart, but the last thing they had was Wonder Woman. So of course this is what they're thinking.
Well, at least they didn't see Wonder Woman go, oh yeah, no, this universe is totally salvageable. This is what we're doubling down on.
Good point.
But I like the idea that you can have, doing this, you can have people come in. I'm hoping it's not all gimmicks. I'm hoping it's not, like, whether it's adaptations or original content, it's not all just the Elseworlds where it's like, what if I did, like, a medieval epic but was with Batman? What if we did, like, you know, I don't know, Wonder Woman on Lord of the Flies or something. Like, you know, like something, like, I hope it's not just all, like logline pitches. This is how you get your R-rated Batman movie, and you let someone.
Because some of those would be fun. I want some of those.
Yeah.
I want the movie where I like Kal-El lands and he's Batman instead of Superman. I want that movie.
Yeah, no, I want those too. But I hope it's not just those. Yeah. I hope we get you just kind of let a filmmaker come in and just go, okay, so this isn't going to affect anything else. You're not going to be stuck with this. Here's my vision of Superman.
Yeah.
Here's what I think Superman should be. Or, isn't this an interesting take on Superman? I'd like to see not just, like, high concepts as much as I'd also like to see just letting people come in and do a take.
Yeah.
I think that would be really cool. Okay, so you're doing the big space thing with Green Lantern. What if we did Green Lantern as, like, a grounded cop movie? And, like, it's a real hard sci-fi.
Well, it's really cool that Joker gets to be a period piece, because I hope that sets a precedent.
Me too. You know,
where there's different kinds of... And again, people might look at that and think of that as kind of high concept. Like, oh, it's just that character, but what if he was in the 50s? But yeah, some of these characters, like started in those places. Like most of them did, you know? So it would be cool to do a Batman movie set in 1938. And let's take it back to when it started.
And when you're doing things like this, it's much easier... I've always talked about...
39.
About this with Batman Returns, where... Or just the Tim Burton movies in general. Some of that stuff is more acceptable in the comic book because it's not canon. You can do a Batman with guns movie. You can do the straight up Detective 27. You could do a movie about that Batman.
And you can do the Superman that's just a crusader.
And no one's going to be angry because it doesn't count. Yeah. It's its own story and it isn't that interesting idea. You're not stuck with that Batman for the next 15 films.
We got to ask this question before we finish up here. What does this mean for Flashpoint? What is the point of Flashpoint then? Was it ever to reboot this continuity that's kind of rocky?
Hopefully it's to kill off this Flash and introduce Wally West. Maybe we'll kill this Aquaman 2 and introduce actual Aquaman.
Because I really hope you don't treat that like just Flashpoint's one of the great Flash stories. Like, I like a lot of things about Flashpoint, but it's... The point of it is just to change a status quo. That's why it's there. Now, if you did a Flashpoint movie that was just the Flashpoint universe and it wasn't about resetting anything,
that'd be cool.
If it's not bookended, if it's not, here's what the world looked like, then we have this really interesting, cool world with a war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and then we go to something else at the end. If you leave the bookend off of it, I would love that movie. The Thomas Wayne movie. I mean, I would love that.
It'd be cool if they did... If they did like universe films, where like you just had like a couple of movies, like it's Flashpoint Batman,
yeah,
Flashpoint Wonder Woman / Aquaman, you know.
you do movie series and you have movie tie-ins. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, because to something you said earlier, where you were like, I don't know if people will be savvy enough to understand what Elseworlds is. I wonder if, I mean, this could be a really good thing for continuing to introduce the way we do comic book serialized storytelling and just the way we do some of those stories in the movies. We've been doing a lot of that with Marvel, where you have these singular films that have this big giant overarching story that go for years and years. And I mean, like, there's a lot of things about the way we tell the comic stories that we have brought to film now that people are getting used to. This would be another thing, you know, to do that with.
Yeah. No, I also think it opens up the potential for Warner's to do television series that like this too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already seeing like 3 different adaptations of Watchmen coming out simultaneously. They're all going to be in different medium formats, but I'd like to see that for some other DC things as well. I think that could be cool.
Well, we have 2 entirely different kinds of Batmans on TV right now.
That's true.
You've got the one named Oliver Queen, and then you have the one who's a little kid that's finally putting on a costume but not a batsuit.
Isn't it interesting, of the 3 live-action Batmans currently existing, the one that seems to be the most Bruce Wayne-ish is the 15-year-old boy?
Isn't that interesting? More about that later. There's a tiny piece of news later I'm going to bring up about that in the omnibus. If you're watching just Geeks Not Nerds, you will not see that.
Just
later.
flip ahead a couple of pages.
Right. We also are bringing comic book storytelling to a visual
But
medium.
where are you? Where are you possibly going to read this? You can't lay in bed and read this. You have to put it on a table and then you got to hunch
people really
over.
want Geekvolution in their hands, and I'm sorry we haven't been able to deliver that to them. One final note about this before we go on to rants. I think, and you and I talked about this the other day, that Warner's, if they're not looking at this, and if this doesn't have to do with part of why they've made this decision, they need to look at it. We already have a really good precedent being set for exactly what they're talking about right now with Fox and what they're doing with X-Men.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, we'll talk about the trailer later, but New Mutants is kind of the... It is now a pattern.
Yes. 3 a pattern makes.
We are doing the X-Men films. I guess are going to keep being like the superhero movies. We're going to try and get as much money as we possibly can, and we're never going to be as good as we possibly could be. Films, but then everything else. Those are the movies we're going to make to keep the X-Men license. And everything else is going to be whatever we want it to be.
And apparently, at least so far, again, we only have 2 so far, but we're talking about Deadpool and Logan, and then into New Mutants. And I imagine X-Force will also be like this. It seems like these are also going to be the ones that sell.
Yeah.
You know, these are going to be the ones that people care more about. I'm afraid the X-Men movies are going to start to look like they're kind of B-string movies. Now, there's not exactly a pattern there yet either, because Days of Future Past is amazing, and all we've had since then is Apocalypse. I mean, we've only had one really bad
Simon Kinberg's directorial debut.
Yeah.
He is the guy that wrote Apocalypse, and X-Men 3, and Fan Four Stick.
So who knows?
He's got a great track record. I think he worked on The Mummy as well.
But I don't take Fan Four Stick as... I said it right that time. I don't take Fan Four Stick as evidence to anything, because that was one of those really weird movies that was cut all the hell.
That's true.
Like,
apparently he also was the one that directed the reshoots of that movie.
Okay, but I mean, like, I'm not gonna say anything about his writing, because I don't know what that movie was.
Sure,
I don't know what I was looking at. Anyway, but my point stands, right, that we do have kind of like what if or Elseworlds X-Men movies happening now. They're all
what is Logan if not that?
Yeah, I mean, Deadpool will all count. You know, Deadpool 2 will be a sequel to that movie. It's not going to be some other Deadpool thing. And we're going to talk about this also when we get to Captain's Log later, but they're also doing apparently a 4-movie arc for cable starting with Deadpool 2. So
it'll be Deadpool, X-Force.
And then X-Force, and I guess either X-Force sequels or a cable thing. But like, so those are certainly going to be connected films.
Yeah. Okay, so X-Force will probably take place in the Deadpool universe.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But anyway,
sure.
but I don't know. This is all fascinating. It's going to be really interesting to see where things go moving forward.
This is the kind of thing where I want to go to the future, like 50 years, and read the tell-all book.
Yeah.
I want the behind closed rooms, warts and all history of what is happening at Warner Brothers right now.
But my final thought on this topic is DC and Warner's need to not be afraid of failure. They need to take risks and put out movies that may not sell. They need to let that
Which is
happen.
exactly what Fox is doing.
Yep. And they
Stop
need to
copying Marvel, copy Fox.
They need to just be smart enough about the things they're releasing that they might have, you know, a thing or two that they can be at least relatively sure is a surefire bet, and then other things that they just sneak in. And so you can't base your entire battle strategy on the last thing you made.
And
that's the big thing they need to stop doing, is just don't base it on the last thing you made.
And if you're not constantly,
especially now that you've had a hit. That you had a real solid hit, critically and commercially. You don't find a ton of people that hate Wonder Woman.
And if you're not constantly coordinating schedules and dealing with continuity and things like that, and you just treat them like movies you're making at your studio, you can easily put out 3 or 4 a year.
That's right.
Because you don't have to worry about it.
And the ones that hit real great should make up for the ones that don't.
Yeah, I agree.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Let's move on to rants now. And Eric, what would you like to rant about this week, sir?
So this is a little premature because we're doing this weekly, but it's what was on my mind, so I'm going to bring it up here. Christmas rant. No, that'd be really premature.
Yeah. Halloween rant?
Yeah, Halloween rant.
Okay, all right.
Hey, if teenagers show up at your door, don't say you're too old to trick or treat. Those are the good kids. If there are kids showing up at your house as teenagers trick-or-treating, and you're like, oh, you're just trying to get candy. Yeah, maybe, but they're the ones not going out and getting wasted with their friends at a party, doing devious things, not TPing houses. Those are the good kids. And give them candy, because they deserve it, and they're just as in the spirit of Halloween as the kids are. They're having fun. I mean, if they show up with a T-shirt that just says like costume, like that's one that, if they show up in a real costume, give them candy. Why not? Why are they any less worthy? I trick-or-treated until I was like 18. Like my friends are like, yeah, let's go see if they'll give us candy, and they did, and we had legit costumes.
But Eric, are you not worried about oversaturation? Are you not worried about too many teenagers that continue to do this well past? No.
Why?
Okay.
Why would you be worried?
Because I've never seen this happen in my neighborhood. But the only concern that I think is valid with this is if people are at their doorsteps running out of candy, and there's a little kid that comes up and they're out, and you gave like 20 teenagers candy that night. Yeah, that's not cool. No, that's not cool.
No, that's fair, but that's not what's happening.
And don't say buy enough candy. Like
no, but that's not what's happening.
Okay. I'm just saying if that was the argument. No, I'm with you. I don't really mind it. Now, if there was like a whole lot of bullying happening, if it was like teenagers going out and like knocking kids over so they can get up to the doorsteps and stuff, that'd be one thing. I've also never seen that.
Only in movies.
Most of the time, it seems like the teenagers just really miss being little kids, and they're just trying to. I mean, like.
And also, the teenagers, they don't have the money to buy candy. Just like the children, they don't have the money to buy candy. This is their only way to get it.
So you're saying that the litmus test for this, the standard for this is if you are poor enough that you are still excited about free candy, it should be okay for you to go trick or treating.
Well, enough.
If free candy is still exciting to, because free candy would not be that exciting to me. Like if free candy is that exciting to you, you should still get the trick or treat. Is that what you're saying?
I agree.
I think that's
yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I agree with you reiterating my point.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
that was my interpretation. Yeah, of what you said.
Look, if somebody shows up to your house dressed in a costume and they look like they probably get bullied at school, I think they deserve candy. That's all I'm saying.
I think so too. Yeah. If he's got a pocket protector.
Yeah.
Over his costume.
Yeah. So yeah, don't discriminate against teenagers on Halloween. Give them candy too. They need it too.
I have a feeling that's going to be a real divisive rant, Eric.
You think so?
I think, yeah, I do. I think some people might take issue with your rant. I think they're not going to agree with you. I don't know.
Come at me, bro. Bros skis.
Eric, my rant this week is about news articles online, specifically that are reiterating or acting like they're iterating for the first time a interview that they had with a celebrity or a director or whoever they're talking about. I've been seeing this increasingly more and more, and it's driving me crazy.
You told me about it, and then immediately the next day I was looking at it.
Did you have one?
That?
See, it drives me nuts. So I think it needs to be clear when you click on an article if you're looking at a written interview, or if you're looking at, because usually they're short, right? It's not like an exclusive interview where somebody has 20 pages where they sat down with somebody and and talk for a long time. It's where Del Toro sat down with somebody and they didn't video record it, But it's like it'll look like a soundbite that's a little longer than a soundbite, where it'll say like this person said this and this. And sometimes you'll read that article, and that is all you have, and it's reported that way. Like a reporter or reporters heard that, they wrote it down, and they're telling you verbatim or as close to verbatim as they can, like what that person said. And sometimes what you get is, we have a complete video interview, and in order to get written content in our article, and I assume it's just so that it doesn't look like nothing but clickbait, so you don't just put a video there. They've written out a bunch of the interview, and then they've put the video, the actual interview, at the end. No, you put it on top.
Or at the very least, you do what we used to do, which is the first thing on your article is see video below.
Yeah, but it needs to be right wherever it is, but you need to know that you can get it from the horse's mouth and get the inflections and the way they said it in the first place, because A, the way a person says something can change the meaning of it, right? And B, what if you made a mistake in your article? And I've seen this a lot, and it's really disturbing and unfortunate, where, I mean, have some editorial oversight. We could have an entire GNN about this. Proofread your stuff. You wrote a 150 word or less article, and you didn't proof it enough to make sure that the thing I can fact check you with that's in your article right there is correct, word for word. Unacceptable. And I don't have a great example right now. I saw this last week with something, I can't remember what it was. It was a couple actors from a movie. I think maybe it was something with Blade Runner.
Oh, Blade Runner.
And I think, but I'm reading this article, and I read every line of the interview, and then I'm like, oh, and I could just watch the interview. So I watched the interview. It got stuff the person said wrong.
I've also seen it paraphrased, or they over-accentuate.
And it completely changed the meaning of what the person was saying.
Yeah.
And then it makes you question everything. It makes you question articles where you don't have the video, because you're like, well, can I trust that what you wrote down is being what the actor or whatever said? Because I can't fact check you now, and I feel like I need to.
And I've also seen where they make a bigger deal out of a minor thing that they brought up in a video, where it'll be these are the 3 things that they talked about, and then you go watch the video. One of them is just the thing that the site is pushing, and it was just a throwaway, they mentioned it in one sentence, but the majority of the interview is not about it.
Yeah.
That's not one of the main talking points of this.
Yeah, in order to spin it in some way. But okay, I'm going to make a really grand statement, and this might sound kind of
how many interviews have you seen where they it's Ben Affleck is talking about his new movie, and it's and big something about Batman, and you watch the entire interview, and it's just and work on Batman's going really well, something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Right. It's just it's a small piece of the thing, and it's not. And it doesn't actually really tell you anything. And it's obviously somebody who wants it to mean something, and is trying. It's just for some puzzle pieces. But anyway, I want to make a really grand statement, and this might be controversial to some people. This might sound way too, I don't know, political or something for me. But I really feel like this, Eric. I think the biggest reason we have so much division in this country, in the world at large, but especially in this country, is lack of communication, is poor communication. Ironically, we live in a world where it is easier to talk to anybody you want to than it ever has been, and people are getting the message incorrectly, getting it wrong, and in such a way where it offends them more than ever before. Now, more than any time ever, no matter how innocuous the subject seems to be, we're just talking about entertainment. It's just lighthearted fun, I guess. When it is that, we're well, it's not important. It's not anything earth-shattering. Even with something as innocuous, if you want to look at it that way, as somebody just talking about a movie they just made. Now is the time where it is more important than it ever has been, I think, for journalists to be accurate, to get it right. I think it's so important. We all need to communicate better. Now is not the time to rush your article real fast just to get it up before anybody else does and not proofread it.
Yep.
That's my rant. That's what we do here. That's what the rants are for, and that was very ranty. Anyway, well, that is going to be it for Geeks Not Nerds this week. Thanks a lot for watching. If you're watching just this video and not the after show, not the omnibus. Now we're going to get to some more omnibus stuff.